I said I never want to see you again. The words echo off the marble walls as I hurl the divorce papers across the penthouse floor. They land beside the shattered frame of our wedding photo, glass glittering like the city lights beyond the window. My chest tightens. The skyline blurs. For the first time in my life, I don't recognize the reflection staring back at me. My name is Ethan Cole, and 3 nights ago, I thought I'd built a perfect life. Beautiful wife, thriving business, respect from everyone who mattered in Manhattan. Now, I'm alone in a $13 million apartment that feels like someone else's museum, watching a video that's about to detonate everything I thought I knew. Play it again. I whisper, my voice trembling. The screen flickers, showing our wedding ceremony from 10 years ago. There, behind us, in the corner, stands a man holding a camera. Not one of the photographers. His lens is focused entirely on me. I freeze the frame and zoom in. The label on the equipment reads, NYPD evidence. Younger 2015 88 21. My phone vibrates. Unknown number. Mr. Cole. The voice is gravel, worn down by cigarettes and long nights. Name's Jack Rayner. Retired FBI. Been waiting a decade to have this conversation with you. I grip the phone tighter. Who the hell are you? I'm the man in your wedding video, he says evenly. And before you hang up, you need to know, your wife, Ava, isn't who she says she is. I sink into the leather chair, where Ava used to curl up on Sunday mornings, pretending to read investment reports while scrolling through fashion blogs. That's impossible. I know my wife. Jack's laugh is dry, humorless. Then you know she stole $30 million before she met you? Or that Ava Langford isn't her real name. The room tilts. Manhattan gleams below, indifferent to my unraveling world. That same view once felt like a promise. Now it looks like a warning. 3 days ago, I say quietly, she told me our marriage was a bet. Said she married me on a dare. Stayed 10 years just to take half my money. You're saying it's worse than that? Oh, much worse, Jack replies. The bet was just her cover story. She's a professional con artist, and you were her biggest score. Meet me tomorrow. 9 a.m. diner on Queens Boulevard and 47th. Come alone. Why should I trust you? Because in about 6 hours, you'll notice millions missing from your accounts. Not all at once, slowly, carefully, over the last decade. Start with the Cayman portfolio she talked you into. The one she said was for tax efficiency. The line goes dead. Silence stretches through the penthouse. My reflection in the glass looks hollow, like someone Ava already erased. Somewhere in this city, she's probably asleep in a 5-star suite, smiling in her dreams, convinced she's untouchable. Her last words replay in my head. You were so easy, Ethan. So desperate to prove you weren't your father's son. You practically begged to be fooled. My father, Richard Cole, died chasing redemption after his investment firm collapsed. I spent my life rebuilding his legacy, deal by deal, dollar by dollar. And Ava, she studied that. She weaponized it. I rewind the video once more. Ava's eyes glisten as she says her vows. My mother, Margaret, dabs her eyes in the front row. For a second, it almost feels real again, until I see Jack Rayner's reflection in the mirror behind us, camera aimed at my heart. And suddenly, I realize the wedding wasn't the beginning of our love story. It was the opening scene of her crime. My brother Ryan stood beside me that day, grinning like he'd just watched me win the lottery. My Uncle Charles, a federal judge with the posture of authority carved into his bones, nodded proudly from the front row. And in the far corner, half hidden behind the floral arch, Jack Rayner filmed it all with an evidence camera, waiting 10 years to tell me that every moment of that perfect day was a lie. Now, a decade later, I'm staring at that same footage, hands shaking as I hit pause. My phone feels like it weighs a ton as I call Ryan. He answers on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. Ethan, it's 2 in the morning. What's going on? Everything, I whisper. Absolutely everything. 3 days before my world fell apart, I was celebrating the biggest victory of my career, the Tribeca Horizon Project, 5 years in the making. A $200 million deal that would turn a forgotten block of downtown Manhattan into glass towers, boutiques, and rooftop gardens. I'd stood in my office, 40 floors above Central Park, watching the skyline fade into gold. Mr. Cole, the Langston Group's signatures just came through, my assistant Jenna announced, placing the final contract on my desk. Congratulations. That makes you one of the top 5 developers in the city. I smiled, picked up my phone, and called Ava. She answered on the second ring, her voice calm and poised, carrying that faint trace of Boston high society she never quite lost. Hello, darling, she said. How's your day? We did it, I said, grinning. The Langston deal closed. $200 million. We're officially set for life. There was a pause. Then, softly, she said, That's wonderful, Ethan. Actually, perfect timing. We need to talk when you get home. About what? Should I bring champagne? Just come home, Ethan. We'll talk then. Her tone should have made me pause, but I was too busy riding the high. Ava was always full of surprises, extravagant, unpredictable, intoxicating. I told myself this was just another one of her mysterious moods. 10 years earlier, she'd stunned the entire Manhattan elite during my mother's charity auction at the plaza. I'd been bachelor number 12, wearing a rented tuxedo and a hopeful smile, still clawing my way back after my father's financial collapse. The bidding started at $500, mostly polite gestures from my mother's society friends. Then a voice from the back, smooth and confident, broke through the murmurs. 50,000. The ballroom fell silent. Every head turned. A woman in a black Versace gown stood near the champagne bar, her dark hair pinned in a perfect chignon. Her gaze locked on me like she'd just claimed her prize. Ryan leaned over and whispered, She just bought you like a racehorse, man. My mother, Margaret, was ecstatic. The queen of New York charity galas had just witnessed her most memorable moment yet. Do you know who that is? She whispered frantically to the coordinator. Ava Langford, they told her. Harvard MBA, family money, old Boston name. Just joined Goldman Sachs. Our dinner at Le Bernardin was like a scene from a dream. She ordered wine that cost more than my rent and talked about my projects as if she'd studied my entire life. You're going to own this city someday, she said, eyes burning with conviction. You talk about buildings the way artists talk about light. She was the first person who ever mentioned my father without pity. Richard Cole, the man who lost everything in a Ponzi scheme. The man whose mistakes haunted me like a permanent shadow. How do you even know about my father? I'd asked. I do my research, she said, raising her glass with a sly smile. I don't spend 50 grand without knowing what I'm buying. 6 months later, I proposed at the Rainbow Room with a ring that emptied my savings account. She said yes before I even finished a question. Our wedding was the definition of Manhattan excess. 300 guests at the St. Regis, roses flown in from Amsterdam, a string quartet from Juilliard playing under crystal chandeliers. My mother cried tears of joy. Uncle Charles gave a toast about legacy and redemption, and Ryan got drunk enough to tell everyone I'd finally outkicked my coverage. And somewhere, quietly recording it all, was Jack Rayner. His camera marked NYPD evidence, capturing not a love story, but the first scene in a long, beautifully executed con. My mother had invited everyone who mattered, determined to show the world that the Coles were back on top. The ballroom shimmered with politicians, real estate moguls, and the city's social elite. Her silent declaration that the family name my father had nearly destroyed was once again respected. Uncle Charles, my mother's brother, a federal judge with 30 years on the bench, had pulled me aside during the reception. She's good for you, Ethan, he'd said, a rare softness in his voice. I've seen enough liars in my courtroom to spot them a mile away. This girl, she's the real thing. For 10 years, I believed him. Together, Ava and I built what looked like an empire. The Fifth Avenue penthouse, bought with the profits from my first major development. The Hamptons estate, acquired after one of Ava's investment strategies, supposedly doubled our portfolio. The art collection curated to impress the kind of people who used words like pedigree. The membership at the Metropolitan Club that had once turned down my father's application. Let's build our empire first, then our family, Ava used to say when I brought up children. I want our kids to have everything we didn't. The best schools, the best start, no fear about money. It made sense. Everything she said always did. Until 3 days ago. When I walked into the penthouse that night, something felt wrong. The air smelled of her Joe Malone candles, but instead of soothing, the scent stung, sharp, and aseptic. The living room lights were low. Ava sat on the white Italian leather sofa we bought in Milan for our 5th anniversary, wearing a cream cashmere dress and an expression that didn't belong to the woman I'd married. 2 glasses of wine waited on the coffee table, beside a manila folder. "Sit down, Ethan," she said, patting the seat beside her. I loosened my tie, still half of my post-meeting adrenaline. "What's going on?" "Sit," she repeated, calm as ever. I dropped onto the sofa, reaching for a glass. She slid it away. "You'll want to be sober for this." My heart thudded. "Are you sick? Is something wrong?" "No," she said. "I'm perfectly fine." She opened the folder with steady hands, hands that had never trembled, even when signing multi-million-dollar contracts. "These are divorce papers. Already filed this morning. I'm taking the penthouse, the Hamptons property, and half of all liquid assets. My attorney says the prenup's 10-year clause makes everything pretty straightforward." The words didn't register at first. I stared at the pages, and my own name typed neatly under responded. "Ava, what are you talking about?" I managed. "Is there someone else? Whatever this is, we can fix it. Counseling, time apart." She laughed. Not the light, social laugh that charmed donors at galas, or the genuine one that used to fill our kitchen on lazy Sundays. This sound was metallic, cold, and deliberate. "Oh, Ethan," she said, smiling like I told a joke. "You still don't get it. There was never anyone else because there was never really an us." My breath caught. "What are you saying?" She rose, walking toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The sunset washed her in gold, but the light only made her look less human. "Do you remember that charity auction where we met? The $50,000 bid?" "Of course," I said quietly. "It was the start of everything." She turned, and her eyes were those of a stranger. "No, Ethan. It was the start of a bet." I blinked. "A bet?" She nodded. "Senior year, at Harvard Business School. A few of us made a wager. The challenge: marry someone worth over $10 million. Stay married for exactly 10 years to maximize the payout. Then walk away with half. Winner gets bragging rights. And a case of vintage Dom Perignon." My pulse roared in my ears. "You're telling me this marriage was just a game?" She tilted her head. "Don't be so dramatic. It wasn't about the champagne. It was about proving a point. That marriage is just another form of leverage. That love is chemical, predictable, controllable. That anyone can be manipulated once you understand their insecurities." "My insecurities," I said quietly. She smiled, that slow, knowing smile that used to melt me. "Exactly. You were perfect, Ethan. Brilliant, ambitious, always chasing redemption. The son of a man who lost everything trying to prove his worth. You wanted to rewrite your father's story, and all I had to do was make you believe I was your happy ending." The room tilted. My throat burned. "So what now?" I whispered. "You take half my life and walk away." Ava picked up her glass of wine at last, holding it like a trophy. "Not half, darling. Just my share of the deal." And then, with the same grace she'd always had, she raised her glass in a mock toast to the man she'd spent a decade studying, building, and ultimately destroying. "After your father's scandal," Ava said, her voice calm and cold, You were desperate to prove yourself, to be respected by the very people who once whispered your family name with pity. Handsome enough to make 10 years bearable. Smart enough to earn the fortune I wanted, but not quite smart enough to see through me. Each word landed like a blade. She wasn't angry, wasn't cruel, just deliberate, clinical. She picked up her phone and tapped the screen, scrolling for a moment before turning it toward me. It was a group chat, the date stamped 10 years and 3 months ago. Madison, Ava's actually doing it. 50 grand to marry a stranger? She's lost her mind. Alexandra, 10 years is a long time to fake a marriage. Charlotte, this is insane. And then Ava's reply, trust me, it'll be worth it. Ethan Cole is going places. 10 years from now, I'll be set for life, and you'll all owe me that, Dom. My vision blurred. The room tilted, warped, as if the floor itself rejected what I'd just seen. Every moment, I whispered, every I love you. Not everything had to be fake, she said almost kindly, like a teacher explaining a concept to a slow student. I did enjoy parts of it. The lifestyle, the access, the status. You were adequate in bed, which was a nice surprise. And you were so hopelessly devoted. That made things easier. What about when my mom had cancer? I demanded. You held her hand through every chemo session. You cried with her. I'm an excellent actress, Ava replied without hesitation. I won state for drama my senior year. Tears on cue were practically muscle memory. I could barely breathe. Our trip to Paris, for my 40th birthday. You said it was the happiest week of your life. It was a lovely hotel, she said lightly. And the shopping was exceptional. My stomach twisted. I forced the words out. The prenup, my lawyer said it was ironclad. For the first 5 years, she said, unbothered. After that, the clauses weaken. By 10 years, they're worthless. Your attorney was competent, but mine was better. I planned this timeline before we even met. She stood, smooth and graceful, walking toward the hallway. 3 Louis Vuitton suitcases waited by the door, lined up like soldiers. I'll be at the Carlton Hotel. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Ava, please. My voice cracked. 10 years. How can you just walk away? She paused, hand on the doorknob, her reflection ghostly in the glass. You know the funniest part, Ethan? You never questioned it. A gorgeous woman bids 50 grand on you at a charity auction, and you just accept it as destiny. Your ego made this easy. You wanted to believe you'd earn someone like me. You wanted to believe you were chosen. The door clicked shut. The sound was soft, but it split the air like a gunshot. For 2 days, I didn't leave the penthouse. The place became both my prison and my grave. Every room held a ghost. Her laughter, her perfume, her lies. I wandered from room to room, replaying conversations, searching for cracks I should have seen. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. The city kept moving 40 floors below, bright and merciless, while I unraveled in silence. Ryan showed up on the second day, using a spare key when I didn't answer. He found me in my study, surrounded by photo albums, bank statements, and fragments of what I used to call a life. Jesus, Ethan, he said, shoving papers aside to sit on the edge of my desk. You look like hell. When's the last time you ate? I didn't look up. Did you know? Did anyone suspect? Are you kidding me? Ryan snapped. Mom's been calling me nonstop, crying her eyes out. Uncle Charles is in shock. Keeps saying he's sentenced people for less. Nobody had a clue, man. She played everyone. She planned it for 10 years. I muttered. 10 years of flawless execution. She made me coffee every morning. Kissed me goodnight. Helped pick out Mom's birthday gifts. How do you fake that kind of love? Ryan gripped my shoulders. You need to get a grip. We're going to fight this. Maybe the prenup has loopholes. We'll hire better lawyers. With what money? I said bitterly. Half my assets are already frozen, pending divorce. She timed everything perfectly, right after the Langston deal closed. She's walking away with millions. Then we'll prove fraud, Ryan said fiercely. Marriage under false pretenses. That's grounds for reversal. I laughed, hollow and bitter. Prove what? That she didn't love me? That the vows were lies? She'll say her feelings changed. She'll call that group chat a joke. She's been rehearsing this ending for a decade. Ryan's voice softened. Then we find something she didn't plan for. Everyone leaves footprints. Ethan. Even her. I looked around at the ruins of my life. The papers, the photos, the video still paused on our wedding kiss. And for the first time in my life, I realized I'd built an empire for a woman who never existed. My mother showed up about an hour later, carrying a thermos of homemade chicken soup and looking like she hadn't slept in days. Margaret Cole, who'd faced my father's downfall, her own cancer, and the slow disintegration of our family name without ever once crying in public, looked broken. "I introduced you too," she whispered, her voice trembling. "At my charity gala. I pushed you toward her. This is my fault, Ethan." "It's not," I said quietly. "She targeted me. If it hadn't been your gala, she would have found another way." "But how could we not see it?" Mom asked, her fingers gripping the soup container like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "How does someone fake love for 10 years? That question haunted me long after she'd gone to bed on my couch. At 2 a.m., I found myself in the living room with my laptop open. The only light came from the screen, playing the wedding video I hadn't watched in years. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Signs I'd missed, moments where the mask slipped. Or maybe I just wanted to punish myself with the illusion I'd once believed in. The footage opened with the preparations at the St. Regis. Ava laughing with her bridesmaids as a stylist pinned her veil. Me pacing nervously while Ryan fixed my tie for the 5th time. "Relax, Ethan," he said in the video, grinning. "She's not going anywhere." The ceremony had been flawless. 300 guests packed the ballroom. Roses everywhere. A string quartet played Pachelbel's canon. Ava floated down the aisle like she was stepping out of a dream, and I stood at the altar staring at her, like she was redemption itself. After Dad's scandal, marrying her had felt like reclaiming our name. But then something caught my eye, someone in the background I'd never noticed before. In the back corner, behind the last row of chairs, stood a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't sitting, wasn't mingling. He was holding a camera, filming the ceremony. But he wasn't our videographer or any member of the hired crew. I knew every vendor by name. I'd personally signed their contracts. I paused the video and zoomed in. The man looked about 40, sharp haircut, black suit that screamed law enforcement, not event staff. His camera wasn't sleek or decorative like the others. It was industrial, functional. Frame by frame, I enhanced the image. And then I saw it. A small label on the side of the camera, partially visible but clear enough to read. NYPD evidence / 2014 / 7739. My heart dropped into my stomach. Why would someone be filming my wedding with a police evidence camera? I tore through every piece of media from that day. Photos, video clips, even guest cell footage. The same man appeared 13 times, always in the background, always filming. In one candid shot from the cocktail hour, I could even see a badge clipped his belt. I grabbed my phone and called Ryan. "Get over here right now." He showed up 20 minutes later in pajama pants and a coat, hair sticking up. When I showed him the footage, he leaned close to the screen, frowning. "What the hell, man? Who is that guy?" "I don't know," I said, "but I'm going to find out." "How?" "You don't even have a name." Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. 2:47 a.m. "Ethan Cole," I said cautiously. The voice that came through was gravelly, tired, like someone who'd been awake for a decade straight. "My name is Jack Rayner. I'm a retired FBI agent. I heard about your divorce filing through old channels. I think it's time we talked." "About what?" "About your wife," he said. "And about why I was at your wedding 10 years ago with an evidence camera. More importantly, about the $30 million she stole before she ever met you." I froze. Ryan gestured wildly beside me, mouthing, "Speakerphone." I hit the button. "Your wife isn't who you think she is," Rayner continued. "Her real name isn't Ava Langford. It's Ava Martinelli. 10 years ago, she was the prime suspect in one of the biggest investment fraud cases in Boston history. We could never make the charges stick, but we knew she did it." I swallowed hard. "So you've been watching us for 10 years. Spying on us." "Watching her, Mr. Cole," he said flatly. "You were collateral observation. But now that she's filing for divorce, trying to merge her legitimate money with her stolen funds, you've become our best shot at putting her away. What do you want from me?" "I want to meet. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Queens Boulevard Diner. Come alone. Bring the wedding video." There was a pause. "And, Mr. Cole, check your Cayman Islands investment account tonight. The one she told you to open for tax reasons. I think you'll find the balance enlightening." The line went dead. Ryan stared at me, eyes wide. "Ethan, what the hell did we just walk into?" I didn't answer. I was already logging into my account. Ryan and I stared at each other, then at the glowing computer screen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a second before I finally logged into the Cayman Islands account. What appeared on the screen didn't just confirm that Ava was a fraud. It showed me she was far more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. The next morning, I met Jack Rayner at the Queens Boulevard Diner, the kind of place that hadn't changed since the 70s. Flickering neon sign, cracked red vinyl booths, a bell that jingled every time the door opened. The air smelled like burnt coffee and old secrets. He was already there, sitting in the back corner booth. The same man from the wedding video, older now, worn down by years of chasing shadows. His once dark hair had gone gray, and the creases around his eyes looked carved by exhaustion. When I approached, he stood and shook my hand. His grip was firm, the kind of handshake that told you he'd seen things he couldn't talk about. "Mr. Cole," he said, "appreciate you coming." He motioned for the waitress. "Coffee black. You'll want one too." I slid into the booth and set the USB drive with the wedding footage on the table. "You said you had answers. Start talking." Jack nodded and pulled out a thick manila folder, worn soft around the edges. "Your wife's real name is Ava Martinelli," he began. "Born in Southie, South Boston, not Beacon Hill like she told everyone. Her father was a low-level bookmaker who got himself killed over debt when she was 10. Her mother waited tables and cleaned offices to keep them fed. The Harvard MBA is real, full scholarship, but just about everything else in her background is fiction." He handed me a photograph. It was Ava, but younger. Her hair was darker, her face sharper, her eyes defiant. A mugshot. Boston PD, 2011. Arrested for wire fraud. Jack continued. Charges dropped after the witnesses either recanted or conveniently disappeared. Not dead, just well paid and relocated. Even back then, she was good. He flipped open another file. Then came 2013. She was working for a hedge fund out of Boston, Meridian Capital. Had an affair with a senior partner, Marcus Webb. Used his passwords, stole his access credentials, and over 6 months, drained $30 million in small, surgical transfers from client accounts. By the time anyone caught it during the quarterly audit, she'd already vanished. "You couldn't track her?" I asked. "Oh, we did," Jack said, stirring his coffee absently. "Through 17 shell companies in 9 countries. The money was scrubbed clean before anyone could tie it back to her. We knew it was Ava, but proof? That's another story." He leaned forward. "And then, she turns up in New York under the name Ava Langford. New accent, new wardrobe, 50 grand to spend at charity auction. That's when she found you." I clenched my jaw. "You were watching us all that time." "Not all the time," Jack said, "but enough to keep tabs. She was building something. The marriage gave her legitimacy, your family's reputation, your uncle being a federal judge. It made her untouchable. We couldn't even open a file without cause. She used you perfectly, Mr. Cole. Uncle Charles." The thought made my stomach twist. He'd vouched for her. He told me she was the real deal. Jack continued. But greed always ruins the game. When she filed for divorce, that triggered an automatic review of her financial footprint. That's when we found something. He pulled a small laptop from his bag and turned it toward me. Recognize this? I did. It was the Cayman account. The one Ava insisted we opened 5 years ago for international tax efficiency. Look closely, Jack said. The screen displayed pages of transactions, deposits, withdrawals, transfers. At first glance, everything looked legitimate. But then I saw it. The pattern was off. None of the deposits matched my real estate deals or corporate payouts. These aren't mine, I said slowly. Exactly, Jack said. She's been laundering the original $30 million through your business accounts. Small, calculated deposits mixed with your legitimate income. Over 10 years, she's cleaned almost every cent. And now, thanks to community property laws, half of it is legally yours. My pulse pounded in my ears. Which means she walks away with $15 million in clean money and half of everything I built. Jack nodded grimly. And the kicker? You're technically implicated. The IRS could come after you for offshore laundering. I stare at the table, the world spinning. So, I go to prison. Not if you cooperate, Jack said, his voice low and steady. We're not after you, Ethan. You're a victim. But the government's not known for leniency unless you give them something bigger. I met his eyes. What do you want me to do? You're going to call her, he said simply. Tell her you want to discuss the divorce. Make it sound like you're ready to negotiate. Maybe even reconcile. She won't resist. She'll think she's already won. Then you'll wear a wire. We need her to admit to the fraud, the laundering, the fake identity. Without that confession, she disappears again, and this time she'll vanish for good. And if she figures it out, I asked. Jack's tired eyes met mine. Then you'd better pray she only ruins your life again, and not something worse. The meeting was set for the next afternoon at our penthouse overlooking Central Park. I stood shirtless in the bedroom, the weight of the moment pressing down as 2 FBI agents secured a wire to my chest. The adhesive was cold, like the metal taste of dread in my mouth. Just get her to talk, Jack Rayner said quietly, tightening the last piece of tape. She's confident now, too confident. That's when people slip. I nodded, barely hearing him. My heart was already pounding against the microphone. At exactly 3 o'clock, Ava Langford walked in, punctual as always, wrapped in a tailored Saint Laurent suit that screamed quiet power. She looked stunning, poised, untouchable, dangerous. She gave me a smile that could melt steel. I'm glad you decided to be reasonable about this, Ethan, she said, setting her designer bag on the table. I knew you weren't the type to make things messy. I try to steady my breathing. I just want to understand, I said. Was any of it ever real? Ava crossed to the bar, poured herself a glass of wine from the Venetian crystal decanter we'd bought on our honeymoon. The smell of it hit me like a memory I didn't want. You want the truth? She asked, swirling the wine. The bet was real. My friends dared me to start over, to reinvent myself. But that was just a convenient excuse. I needed a new life after Boston. And you, she smiled faintly. You were perfect. Successful enough to give me status. Damaged enough not to dig too deep. Her tone was casual, like she was describing a business transaction, not a marriage. What about the hedge fund money? I asked quietly. The $30 million you stole from Marcus Webb and Meridian Capital. The name landed like a gunshot. Her eyes flashed, just for a second, but it was enough. How do you know about that? I know your real name is Ava Martinelli. I know your Harvard story was real, but everything else was a lie. And I know you've been laundering that money through my accounts for years. Her lips parted in disbelief. Then realization flickered in her expression. You're wearing a wire. I didn't move. 10 years, Ava. I deserve the truth. Was any of it real? She stood at the doorway, hand on the handle, ready to run. But she didn't. Slowly, she turned back toward me. You really want to know? Her voice cracked just slightly. The first 3 years were an act. Every word, every smile, every kiss was a performance. But around year 4, I started to forget it was fake. You'd fall asleep on the couch, and I'd find myself tracing your hand, wondering how I got there. By year 7, I stopped caring what was real. I just wanted to stay. Then why end it? I asked, voice breaking. She took a shaky breath. Because love doesn't erase the crimes that built it. I've done terrible things, Ethan. The money, the lies, the fake name, they're all mine. But so was the way I loved you. That part was real. She glanced at the door again. I'm leaving now because it's the only honest thing left I can do. I could have disappeared with everything, but I wanted to end it right. Give you some kind of closure. The words hung heavy in the air. Then the door burst open. Agents flooded in, shouting commands. Ava didn't fight. She just froze as Jack Rayner stepped forward, badge raised. Ava Martinelli, he said, his tone hard as steel. You're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. She turned her head toward me as they cuffed her wrists. For a moment, everything fell away. The agents, the shouting, the chaos. There was just her and me, standing on the ashes of what used to be a life. Check the safe in my office, she said softly. Combination's our anniversary. The fake one. Then she was gone. That was 3 months ago. Ava took a plea deal, 5 years in federal prison, maybe 3 with good behavior. The $30 million was traced and returned to the victims in Boston. Our marriage was annulled because of fraud, which meant I kept most of my assets. The FBI seized the offshore accounts but cleared me of any charges. Still, I couldn't shake what she'd said. When I finally opened her office safe, I found 2 things. The first was a diamond ring, not the one I'd given her, but one engraved inside with the words for the life we almost had. The second was a letter, handwritten, on her personal stationery. Ethan, if you're reading this, it means you know the truth. The bet was real. The lies were real. But so is what I felt for you. I built my world out of deceit. But the woman who made pancakes with you on Sundays, who cried when your mother got her diagnosis, who cheered for you when you landed that first independent deal, she was real too. I'm 2 people, Ethan, and one of them truly loved you. I'm sorry the other one couldn't stop destroying everything she touched. Please don't let this ruin you. You're a good man. Find someone who deserves you. I folded the letter and placed it back in the safe. I don't know if I'll ever open it again. But sometimes, late at night, when the city lights hit just right, I swear I can still hear her laugh echoing through the penthouse. And I can't tell if it's guilt or love that hurts more. Ryan thinks I've lost my mind, but I went to see her. Just once. Otisville Federal Prison sits 2 hours north of the city, and yet it felt like another planet. The fluorescent lights, the buzz of the doors, the metallic echo of every step, it all stripped the world of color. Ava looked smaller across that metal table, her usual polish replaced by orange fabric and tired eyes. But there was something new there too. Clarity. She didn't flinch under the guard's watch or my silence. Why? I asked. It was the only word that mattered. She took a deep breath. Because I grew up watching my mother clean houses for people who didn't even see her. I watched her come home at midnight, hands bleeding, while men in suits drank champagne 2 floors above us. After my father died, it was just her and me in a 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like mold and cheap disinfectant. Roaches in the kitchen, rats in the walls. And every morning, she told me to work hard, to be better. So I did. Top of my class. Full ride to Harvard. But none of that mattered, Ethan. Because I didn't have the right name or the right story. Her voice hardened. Marcus Webb, the man I stole from, tried to assault me at a company party. When I told HR, he laughed. Said no one would believe me. So I made sure the next time he laughed, it was while his bank accounts emptied. My throat burned. And me? Was I just another Marcus Webb to you? She looked up, something close to pain flickering in her expression. No. You were supposed to be an easy mark, a rich man with guilt in his bloodline. But then I learned about your father's suicide, about how you built everything from nothing. I watched how you treated people, the way you remembered names, how you tipped waiters. You weren't supposed to be kind. Then why keep lying? Because by the time I realized I loved you, it was too late, she said softly. What was I supposed to do? Tell you over dinner that I was a fugitive who stole $30 million? That I married you to wash it clean? Neither of us spoke for a long time. The guard shifted. Someone coughed. When the visit ended, she stood. For the first time since I'd met her, Ava Langford looked like the woman she'd spent years pretending to be. Human. Flawed. Real. My mother still calls every day, worried I'll fall apart. My Uncle Charles retired early, embarrassed that he vouched for her. If I couldn't see through her, he told me, how can I trust my judgment from the bench? Ryan helps me pack the last boxes from the penthouse. There's too much history here, too many ghosts with designer smiles. He holds up our wedding album. You want to keep this? I take it, flip through the pages. There's Jack Rayner in the background at the reception, pretending to be another guest. There's Ava, radiant, untouchable, beautiful in a way that makes you forget to breathe. And there's me, smiling, believing every word. Yeah, I say quietly. I'm keeping it. Because not everything was a lie. Just enough to destroy everything else. The Tribeca project is complete now. I renamed it Second Chances Plaza. Ryan says it's corny, but I think Ava would have appreciated the irony. We were both trying to outrun our father shadows. She through deceit, me through rebuilding. In the end, we both got exactly what we chased, just not what we wanted. Jack Rayner called me last week. You did good, Ethan, he said. Most men wouldn't have handled it like you did. I asked him, in all those years you watched us, what did you really see? He paused. I saw a woman at war with herself. The con and the wife fighting for control. And I'll tell you something, Ethan, the wife was winning until the very end. A few days later, I got a letter postmarked from Otisville. The handwriting wasn't Ava's. Mr. Cole, my name is Leah. I'm Ava's cellmate. She talks about you every day. She teaches finance classes now. Says she's trying to help people rebuild their lives the right way. She told me to write you because she doesn't want forgiveness. She just wants you to know that you were the only real thing in 10 years of lies. She said, thank you for not hating me. I folded the letter and sat there for a long time. I don't hate her. That's the strangest part of all this. I hate the crimes, the deception, the wreckage she left behind. But hate her? No. Maybe because, in some broken way, she was still the person who made Sunday mornings feel like peace. Maybe because even liars tell the truth once in a while. And maybe she meant it when she said she loved me. Next week, I'm moving to Brooklyn. The brownstone's smaller, simpler, quiet. The penthouse sold for $15 million. The buyer asked why I was leaving such a beautiful home. Because sometimes, I told him, beauty can't cover what's been buried underneath. Here's what I've learned after 10 years of living inside someone else's lie. Love and deceit can share the same heartbeat. Ava Langford proved that. She stole $30 million and 10 years of my life. And somehow, both were priceless. Uncle Charles told me something at our last family dinner. Ethan, you survived something that would have broken most men. You walked out with your integrity intact. Your father would have been proud. Maybe he's right. Or maybe he would have just understood what it means to believe in something too good to be true. Either way, I'm still here. Still building. Still believing. And sometimes, late at night, when the city hums outside my window, I wonder if there was a moment, between the wiretap and the confession, when Ava looked at me and, just for a heartbeat, forgot she was supposed to be lying. If you made it this far, maybe you understand what I didn't. The people who hurt us most are often the ones who saw us clearest. And sometimes, the greatest con isn't the one they play. It's the one we play on ourselves, when we choose to believe that love can't come from a lie.